What happens when the world's most dangerous criminals target the wrong person? Most stories end tragically, but not these ones. Today we're covering 8 people who stood up to drug cartels and organized crime syndicates, and actually lived to tell about it. 50 Cent. Curtis Jackson grew up in Queens during the 1990s when drug gangs controlled entire neighborhoods. By 2000, he was trying to build a rap career while navigating territory controlled by Kenneth McGriff's Supreme Team organization. McGriff didn't just run a gang. He operated like a CEO with distribution networks across New York's 5 boroughs. Jackson, performing as 50 Cent, released music that referenced street life a little too accurately for McGriff's comfort. On a spring afternoon in 2000, while his grandmother gardened outside their home, a gunman approached and fired 9 times. The bullets hit Jackson's hand, arm, hip, legs, chest, and face. One went through his cheek and lodged near his jaw, permanently altering how he speaks. Doctors were shocked he survived. Most people hit 9 times don't make it to the hospital. Jackson spent 5 months recovering, learning to walk again, and dealing with the reality that someone had tried to erase him. But instead of retaliating or cooperating with the police, he channeled everything into his music. That distinctive voice caused by his injuries became part of his signature sound. His recovery recordings eventually reached Eminem, leading to a major label deal. His debut album went multi-platinum and launched a career that's now worth hundreds of millions across music, television, film, and business. McGriff ended up with a life sentence. The attempt to silence Jackson accidentally created one of hip-hop's biggest success stories. Peso Pluma. Peso Pluma built his career performing narco corridos, traditional Mexican ballads that often reference cartel figures and drug trafficking culture. By 2023, the 24-year-old had become one of Mexico's biggest musical exports, with tens of millions of streaming fans worldwide. The problem started when his lyrics praised figures associated with the Sinaloa cartel, while he was from Jalisco, home territory of their rivals, the Ching. When Peso Pluma scheduled a performance in Tijuana, a gang-controlled city overnight banners appeared throughout town. The messages were direct: cancel your October show, or it becomes your final performance. History provided a clear precedent. Chelino Sanchez received a death threat note during a 1992 concert and was killed hours later. In 2018, the C-Gang targeted another performer for showing support to rivals. Just weeks before Peso Pluma's scheduled show, armed men executed artist Lefty SM in his home. As showtime approached with 100,000 fans gathering at the venue, Peso Pluma made a decision that prioritized survival over ego. His team announced the cancellation, citing security concerns. Fans were disappointed but understood the reality of performing in cartel-controlled regions. The cancellation cost millions in revenue, but staying alive is priceless. Peso Pluma postponed his entire Mexican tour and performed internationally instead. His approach differed from artists who'd become martyrs by defying threats. Kate Del Castillo. Kate Del Castillo achieved fame playing powerful women in Mexican television and film. In 2012, frustrated with government corruption, she posted on social media that she trusted El Chapo Guzman more than politicians who hide the truth. The tweet went viral, but one reader paid particularly close attention: El Chapo himself. 3 years later, lawyers for the fugitive drug lord contacted Del Castillo. Guzman wanted his life story told through film and wanted her to produce it. Del Castillo saw an opportunity for an unprecedented biographical project and began arranging a meeting, bringing journalist Sean Penn along to document the encounter. What Del Castillo didn't know was that Mexican intelligence had monitored her communications since that original tweet. When they intercepted messages about a potential meeting, they saw an opportunity. Guzman had evaded capture for over a decade, escaping maximum security facilities twice. But his desire for Hollywood recognition created vulnerability. The October 2015 meeting in the Sierra Madre Mountains lasted 7 hours. Guzman was charming and clearly wanted to impress the actress who'd publicly defended him. He gave her his personal phone number and sent romantic messages about protecting her. Authorities monitored everything as Guzman became increasingly careless, revealing locations, associates, and travel plans. 3 months later, Marines raided his hideout. Though he initially escaped through tunnels, they captured him hours later. When officials explained how they located him, they specifically cited his communications with Del Castillo as crucial intelligence. Her world collapsed immediately. Death threats flooded her accounts from cartel supporters. The government investigated her for potential criminal involvement. Her career suffered, and she couldn't safely return to Mexico. Investigations eventually cleared her of wrongdoing, but the damage was done. Jackie Chan. During the 1980s, Hong Kong's entertainment industry operated under triad control. These organized crime groups dictated which actors got which roles, collected protection money from productions, and made people who refused cooperation disappear. Jackie Chan, already an established action star, had fled to Hollywood after refusing to comply with their demands. When Chan returned to Hong Kong, armed triad members were waiting at the airport. Bullets struck his plane as it landed, sending a clear message. Nobody refuses the triads twice. Instead of fleeing again, Chan made an unconventional choice. He started carrying 3 firearms for personal protection. 2 weeks later, while dining at a Causeway Bay restaurant, 20 armed triad members entered and surrounded his table. Chan retrieved 2 pistols he'd hidden beneath the table, stood, drew a 3rd gun, and confronted them directly. The triads weren't accustomed to actors fighting back with their own methods, but Chan didn't stop at personal protection. Recognizing that other performers faced similar threats, he spent approximately $500,000 hiring mainland security personnel to protect threatened actors. Then he established the Hong Kong Performing Artist Guild, creating organized resistance against triad industry control. The triads had miscalculated. They assumed Chan was just an actor playing tough guy roles. They didn't account for someone who'd spent decades performing his own stunts, sustaining real injuries, and learning actual combat techniques. His willingness to physically confront them while organizing collective resistance broke their control over the industry. Blog del Narco. When Mexican cartels killed 72 journalists between 2000 and 2010, mainstream media essentially stopped covering drug violence. Newspapers went silent, television stations avoided the topic, and reporters had legitimate fears for their safety. Into this information vacuum emerged Blog del Narco in March 2010. Operating through a basic blogging platform, unknown individuals began posting detailed information about cartel violence that traditional media wouldn't touch. Their approach was documentary rather than editorial. Times, locations, cartel affiliations, and warnings about upcoming conflicts. Posts were clinical and factual, simply reporting what was happening. Within months, the blog became Mexico's primary source for real-time information about drug violence. Citizens could check which routes were dangerous, which neighborhoods to avoid, and when conflicts were expected. This information sharing directly threatened cartel power, which relies heavily on controlling narratives. Death threats arrived immediately. Comments threatened the bloggers and their families with gruesome violence. Blog del Narco posted the threats publicly and continued operating. Cartels desperately tried identifying who ran the site, but the operators used encrypted connections, proxy servers, and public Wi-Fi from varying locations. The biggest test came in 2011 when Maria Macias, who moderated a similar forum, was murdered, and her head was left on her keyboard with a threatening note. Blog del Narco posted photos of the killing and continued their work. By 2013, they'd become too prominent to eliminate. International media cited their reporting, and authorities used their information for intelligence. The personal cost was severe. Posts became irregular as operators dealt with constant pressure. They reported losing friends and family members while living in perpetual motion to avoid detection. Someone claiming affiliation fled to Spain seeking asylum in 2014, but posts continued suggesting multiple people managed the site. Lydia Cacho. Lydia Cacho's 2005 book, The Demons of Eden, exposed a child trafficking network involving Mexican governors, senators, businessmen, and cartel figures. She didn't make vague accusations. She named specific individuals who were buying and selling children. 6 months after publication, fake police officers surrounded her in Cancun. What followed was a 20-hour ordeal of torture as they drove her from Cancun to Puebla. Her captors wanted her to recant the book's contents and debated killing her throughout the journey. At one point, they called the governor of Puebla, who was implicated in her investigation. But Cacho had prepared for exactly this scenario. She'd spent years documenting threats and photographing those who threatened her. She'd trained the staff at her women's shelter in similar protocols. Most importantly, she'd already provided all evidence to international journalists with instructions to publish if anything happened to her. This preparation likely saved her life. After releasing her, they charged her with defamation and imprisoned her. She later testified for 7 hours in court against her torturers. Her composure came from understanding she represented mothers of missing children and trafficking victims who couldn't speak for themselves. She successfully fought the false charges and pursued legal action against those responsible. The officer who tortured her and the governor who authorized it both went to prison. But victory came at tremendous cost. She survived 7 assassination attempts. Her pets were poisoned. She lived in safe houses with constant security. After another near miss in 2019, she made the difficult decision to continue her work from exile in Spain. Cacho has now exposed trafficking networks across 147 countries and received over 60 international awards. Some former colleagues criticize her for leaving Mexico, preferring she'd become another martyred journalist. But she chose the harder path, staying alive and continuing to fight. Anabel Hernandez. Anabel Hernandez published Los Llores del Narco in 2010, exposing which government officials received Sinaloa cartel payments. She didn't focus on street-level criminals, but on ministers, police commanders, and military officers taking cartel money. This made her exceptionally dangerous to powerful people. The Mexican government provided bodyguards for her protection, which she noted was embarrassing. The same government whose corruption she exposed was now tasked with keeping her safe. Death threats began immediately. Unknown individuals followed her children to school. Then, in October 2013, 11 gunmen surrounded a house looking for her. Hernandez wasn't home, but the attackers initially stormed her neighbor's house by mistake. When they realized their error, they abducted one of her bodyguards and beat him for hours before releasing him. The message was unmistakable, even though they'd missed their primary target. This attack forced an impossible choice: remain in Mexico and wait for the next attempt, or abandon everything and work from exile. She chose exile, recognizing that her presence endangered everyone around her. But leaving didn't mean surrendering. From Europe, Hernandez continued investigating and publishing revelations about cartel government connections. The cartels had assumed distance would silence her. They were wrong. She remains in exile today, still producing investigations that challenge Mexico's power structures. The government still sends her protective equipment. She recently received a bulletproof vest that she's never worn. Delia Quirua. When Delia Quirua's brother Roberto disappeared in 2014, he became one of approximately 100,000 missing persons in Mexico. For 9 years, Delia searched while watching the Barbie movie phenomenon sweep globally in 2023. She had an idea. She created a custom Barbie dressed in cargo pants and boots, equipped with search tools and wearing a shirt bearing Roberto's photo. She called it the Searcher Barbie and posted it on social media. The response was immediate and massive. The doll represented something mothers of the disappeared understood intimately. The equipment needed to search fields, excavate unmarked graves, and identify remains. These mothers do work, but authorities won't do, spending weekends searching for their missing children. Many find cartel burial sites. Some find their loved ones. Most find only more questions and more searches ahead. Critics accuse Delia of exploiting tragedy for attention or normalizing violence by turning it into a toy. Supporters praised her for forcing people to confront an ongoing crisis. For Delia, the controversy meant people were finally discussing the disappeared. By hijacking Barbie Mania, she redirected international attention from a movie to Mexico's missing persons crisis. The timing was strategic. Media outlets covering Barbie suddenly found themselves reporting on disappeared Mexicans instead. In Tamaulipas, where Delia lives, drawing attention to missing persons is dangerous. The state is controlled by warring cartel factions. Bodies appear regularly. People who ask too many questions often disappear. Other mothers began creating their own searcher Barbies, each bearing photos of their missing family members. Together, they formed what became an army of small plastic witnesses to Mexico's disappeared. Drop a comment below and let me know which story shocked you the most.